Honorable Wilson, proceed. Honorable member, honorable members, honorable Chief Whip, you are out of order. You are doing it in front of my eyes and you are saying I'm out of order. Honorable members, Honorable Wilson, proceed with your maiden speech.
Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Order.
No, honorable members, let the honorable members speak and
I
finish.
just want something corrected. We heard of a member called Dunlop. Dunlop. Please.
Honorable members, this is an important debate here. And I suggest that you, honorable members, I now suggest that we allow the member to proceed to speak so that we conclude this debate in a proper manner. And honorable members, it is unbecoming of the way you are conducting yourselves. It is upright. I told you before, honorable member, that your screaming match in the House is out of order. Honorable Wilson, finish your speech.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, may I please address you? The Honourable Member from the NCOP that was just called to withdraw, which you said she's not going to, is just pulling faces and sticking out her tongue. So can she also stop doing that? I think on a Women's Day debate, coming from a woman is an absolute disgrace.
Honorable members, you are really a disgrace yourselves. Both of you are a disgrace, and it is despicable of you to be behaving like that, including yourself, Chief Whip. The screams you have been making, including the honorable member sitting over there, you are a disgrace and completely out of order. Honorable Wilson, finish your speech. I will not allow anybody else to interrupt you anymore.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Priority must be given to proper policies like the DA's Growth for Jobs policy that focus on poverty and improving linkages, participation and social networks within and between different community groups, thereby fulfilling economic, social and cultural rights. The Western Cape government has had great success with these policies, and we are willing to share this information for the betterment of South Africa and the protection of our children. It is essential that appropriate child rights training is implemented within police forces. This includes information on appropriate ways to deal with all children, particularly those from marginalized groups and those that are subject to discrimination. Police must be educated about the dynamics and nature of violence against children. In some areas, communities do not trust police or others in authority. Social development, as a matter of urgency, must address the critical shortage of specialized social workers to ensure early access and follow-up counseling for victims and perpetrators. In some areas, it is taking up to 12 months for severely traumatized children to get access to social workers because they have such a phenomenal backlog or there are so very few of them. Alternatively, appropriate NGOs must be properly funded to assist in this regard. The protection of children from violence is a matter of urgency and must be prioritized for the future of this country. I thank you.
Honorable the Chairperson of the NCOP, Gandhi Mudise.
Deputy Speaker, Speaker, honorable members, special delegates, fellow South Africans. I want to start off by honoring a very quiet, a caring, a tireless fighter for the rights of women in this country, Medoli Meister. She died at least happy that her efforts had been recognized in her campaign, which she had started in 1971, to help move South Africa from the space she was in. I'm referring to South Africa. To help move South Africa from the space where she was, where only the rich, the connected, the white, could access services to terminate unwanted pregnancies, when she started campaigning for termination for especially the rape cases. We salute to this woman, this daughter of Christiana in the Northwest, Arobaleka Kagiso. Deputy Speaker, it is a fact that throughout the world, women, children, and the elderly, and the people living with disability are subjected to violence and discrimination. It is also a fact that race and gender play a big role in the severity of the violence. It is indisputable that unemployment, that poverty, and the location of the victims also contribute as factors that could aggravate the severity of violence and exposure to violence. It is also a fact that in all forms of conflict, women and children become trophies. They become symbols which must be obliterated by men against men. They become things and objects. And that domestic violence can be classified as mini conflicts which happen within our bedrooms, in our streets, in our communities. That therefore the same tactics that we as general society want to employ must be employed, starting with ensuring that where government cannot come and police, in my household, in my kitchen, in my community, in my street, that I begin to stand up next to the minister and say, count me in, because I shall stop being quiet. Count me in, because I'm going to be the advocate against violence that is perpetuated against people living with disability. Count me in, because this domestic violence knows no race, understands no ideology, hits women across the floor. Count me in, Deputy Speaker, because one of the things which should be unifying South African women, South African parents, is our stance, even as public representatives in this House, to say that we will be united in a campaign which will put the problems and the challenges that we face as society, and we will be united in finding solutions. The launch of this campaign does not expose us, honorable members, to a discussion on the budget of the department the minister is. We're not interested in that today. We're interested in South Africans, public representatives, Jan Alleman, Jan Vroue, taking a stand to say, I am no longer to be complicit, and therefore become a secondary criminal in keeping quiet, in not reporting, in not taking a fight to the criminals who continue to abuse our women, to abuse the elderly, to abuse the disabled, and to even bring that abuse into the offices of government, into the houses. So we need to begin to be serious about how we want to drive this. We need to begin to look at the policies. They are there, Minister. Good. We need to see how we ensure that they are implemented. We need to relook, and I'm very happy that the Minister has taken a view that says she is going to reopen the consultation on the Women's Equality Bill, because there is a lot of work that needs to be redone on the bill. So we will be standing up to say we are going to be counted in. We are very proud that Gauteng is taking a lead, Minister, in the discussions to get into the issues which make our women to get into the space where they become sex workers. We are very happy that we are taking that stand. We are wanting to say, count us in, to say that the issues around lesbians, the gays, the transsexuals, we will be counted in because we think that there is something very wrong with a definition of democracy and equality which does not look at all sectors and all the ills within our societies to make that work. We want to say that we will not be deterred. We want to make sure that we will stand by and call to order South African men, because whose houses were targeted during the elections? It was female councillors' houses. It was not male councillors' houses. It was female mayors who were put on the run. So we need to begin to accept that the honorable members who came here from all parties, who spoke about this mantra, this refusal of South Africa to take away this heavy cloak of patriarchy, of discrimination, of sexism, of racism, that we need to get into that space and say, we shall be counted in, we shall stand up, we shall speak across the parties, we shall speak across the classes and the races, we shall unite as South Africans to make sure that our voice, the voice of reason, the voice of women, will be heard and programs will be supported. Honorable members, we must also say that the criticism to your predecessor, Minister, and to you will come. Because even though we have a ministry which must focus on women, this ministry, if you look at the programs, is not usually adequately funded to execute its work. So before we lynch these women who lead this portfolio, we must also look at what enables them to execute. And we must be able to say, as women parliamentarians across the board again, we shall stand and approach Treasury and say, please give a little bit more. Because, Minister, the statistics are shocking. When you look at South Africa, we know that the rate of absorption into the corporate world in South Africa, women are 13% lower than men. We also know that 60% of women in South Africa live in poverty as compared to 48% of men. We also know that 40% of South Africa's households are headed by women. And 75% of that 40%, honorable members, has been classified as completely poor. We also know that 60% of rural women and 40% of urban women are unemployed. We know that, therefore, you are not going to deal with issues of affirming, of equating, of mainstreaming issues, gender, because you are having women who are outside even the economic life of our country. So we need to begin to do things which will enable women to march forward unfettered. We need to begin to say to Honorable Carter, for instance, a horrible story that you told us in the House. There are members of the executive who don't sit far from you. There are deputy ministers who don't sit far from you. Next time, shake them, tell them, give them their addresses. Let the ministers and deputy ministers start being advocates of ensuring that there is no violence in our communities. So that we self-select members, we stand up, we don't point fingers. Because domestic violence, even if you can pass 100 bills and acts, it starts with the individual. It is something that we must entrench in our own minds in how we bring up our children. It does not need us to make noise. It needs us to act together collectively to make sure that we act. So count me in, Minister, I volunteer. Count me in to deal with issues, rural. Count me in to deal with this bill, the Traditional Courts Bill, to make sure that even though we accept that we are multicultural, let the multiculturalism never undermine the march of South African women to be equal and to truly be equal, and I thank you.
Honorable members, thank you. That concludes the debate and the business of the joint sitting. The joint sitting will now rise.